You poor fascist bastards came all the way here just to die, huh?
I, like many of our younger comrades, was once a capital G gamer. This is a truly embarrassing fact to admit, as this particular reactionary movement was really sad when viewed from an outside perspective. However, thankfully, the online left was able to provide a systematic critique of the world other than, there are women in my video game. And I quickly fled the whole gamer movement for leftist activism, seeing as that had the potential to help people. The reason I'm explaining this is because I believe at the center of Chuds complaining about feminism in video games is the wish of a systematic critique. Of course, their willingness for change is led by people whose goal is to harass women for playing video games, with the hope of shuffling their audience down into the cavern of fascism. But I do believe there is some merit to attempting to win back people whose goal is change and who have up to this point been led astray by fascists directing their anger at minorities. I hope that these folks, when presented with a coherent ideology that they can grasp, will join us. Now, this doesn't apply for all of those in the circle of fascists. I'm mainly talking about capital G gamers, Peterson fans, Ben Shapiro people, and those at the very, very start of the alt-right. There's little point in engaging with the race realists, quote-unquote, the quote-unquote ironic fascists, the ANCAPs, or the 4chan types, as they're already too far gone down the rabbit hole to have a good faith discussion about politics, let alone a good faith discussion, period. Who I'm talking about as the core target for this kind of thing is white men who know that things are wrong, don't know why, and have up to this point only been given a right explanation to the problems, and have not yet introduced to a leftist criticism of the world. This process is better targeted at someone you interact with regularly and has a generally okay opinion of you over a series of days or weeks, and is better used on a colleague, classmate, or friend who you disagree with politically but can have a civil discussion with. All the better if they don't know if you're a leftist, actually. Before we talk about how to convince people, we first must discuss what to not do. You can't hardball on theory. One of the worst experiences when talking to people you can have is to be lectured about words you don't understand in a manner you can't tolerate. Have you ever gotten, like, your car repaired and they say, hey, you repaired your spark plugs with your belt sander, and you say, don't know what those things mean, I feel out of my depth. It's not going to be a fun experience politically, because these people don't really know what it means to production or a class conflict is, and telling them to read a 2,000-page, 100-year-old book translated from German will put them right off. You also can't say socialism, communism, or anarchism. I know that it may sound counterintuitive to not mention your ideology when attempting to explain your ideology to someone. These people associate socialism with everything being shared with everyone, communism with Animal Farm, 100% no food, and anarchy with just, chaos. Mentioning one of them will undoubtedly lead to an hours-long discussion where they attempt to force you to into either the role of Heath Ledger's Joker or Lazarevich from Uncharted 2, depending on what you're discussing. After all this, I'm going to discuss what you're actually saying too. Before we can actually get to the indoctrinating, you gotta get rid of all the anti-feminism and light racism they have built up. At this point, they're probably just like, minorities, simply because they are quote-unquote politics. The best thing to actually do this is Hegelian dialectics. Just don't call it that and they won't notice. Simply point out how they, and all the people they dislike, all the same thing. Good wages and low prices. And the old white men who, own all this stuff that we need to not die, want low wages and high prices. Basic idea is that this will both hopefully institute class consciousness and scrape off the last bits of ingrained racism for minorities. It comes with insisting that their representation in media is political, while their absence is not. You also got to appeal to democracy. Nobody dislikes democracy. Point out how silly it is that all the people we elect are forced to bend to the interest of all those with way too much money, and how those people aren't actually beholden to the people that they're elected by, because they're generally only for two options. And it's slowly get to the point where, logically, people can't be equal under the law as long as some people are allowed to own everything because of their ability to influence what the law is. It's a bit silly that jobs, the place where everyone decides whether or not we all get to eat, get to be run by some, mini dictator who in no way is accountable to the people they boss around all day. You gotta slowly work up to them admitting workplace democratization is probably a good idea, by building up from how cool democracy is, to how money kind of makes that not that cool, to how jobs aren't democratic. people generally think democracy is cool and good, so they won't argue with the first part. It's a bit like those frogs that you put in a pot and watch boil. Never understood that. Seems like some kind of sicko invented that fucking metaphor. Another crucial thing to leftist theory is the labor theory of value, as it is crucial to prove the inherent exploitedness of capitalism. Speaking of this one's discussion, it's a lot more difficult than the other two, as, dialectical analysis of class is, kind of common sense when you think about it. And workplace democratization is easily extrapolated from democracy being universally loved. The labor theory of value is complex and involves math, making it a lot harder to sneak in a conversation. The best thing you can do is directly after pointing out how democracy is in the workplace is a good idea, followed up by then saying that without a boss, people would make more money by not having to make it for the investors. They'll generally either accept this off the bat or ask how, giving you the perfect opportunity to explain to them how, for there to be profit, the company must take money from their employees by paying them less than they produce. At this point, if you've played your cards right, you've gotten them to admit that they have a class conflict with the people who own everything. Workplace democracy is good, capitalism is inherently exploitative, and the people who have all the power are paying off politicians to not change anything. If you've done everything correctly, the subject will now be exceedingly sad, having just realized that the world is in bad shape, and nothing's going to fix it. Now would be the time to spring upon the knowledge that they're currently a socialist. This news is going to be both really horrifying to them and also extremely good, knowing that their new beliefs that you have subtly convinced them of are held in the utmost contempt in the modern era by people who hold the power, but excited by the sudden realization that change is possible. Hopefully they will acclimate smoothly into leftism, as once both the core concept are explained to them and the myths dispelled, it is difficult to go back to thinking of the current capitalist world as anywhere near good for anyone besides the people who own everything. For a series of weeks, with careful enough direction and avoiding the pitfalls of propaganda, it should be easy enough to direct anyone to the left by simply explaining the bare essentials of worker control of the means of production and compatibility of capitalism and democracy and the directly conflicting goals of the classes. Plant the idea in their head that will eventually grow into socialism, even if you don't get them the first time around.